Here at Capcoder, we are delighted to introduce our new and revolutionary all-electric machine. Based on our best-selling Micro Mono, the Micro Mono E eliminates the need for compressed air to operate. And with options such as automatic bottle in-feed, integrated filling, and automatic cap placement, it makes the Micro Mono E unique in the industry. Ideally suited for ultra-clean rooms wanting to eliminate any potential contamination of compressed air, or areas where compressed air is not available. The Micro Mono E requires only a standard 13 amp plug to operate. The all-electric version still excels anywhere from small batch work to high output production. Capcoder are excited to demonstrate their bestseller, the Micro Mono benchtop filling and capping machine. With unparalleled ease of use, flexibility, and a multitude of configurations, from fully manual to fully automatic operation, the Micro Mono truly does stand in a league of its own. Using the same control system as our flagship monoblock, it allows us to incorporate sophisticated technology such as load cells, precision sensors, and torque transducers. It can be integrated with a number of different style fillers, and as well as standard capping, can accommodate styles such as trigger sprays, press-on, and even crimp capping. Originally designed for customers that have a frequent product changeover, the Micro Mono takes advantage of quick release tooling, meaning product changeover can take as little as 2 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to you all, our audience, as well as our guests here in the studio. I'm Dr. Praveen Patara, and our today's topic for discussion is Beyond CBD. We all know CBD market has had a growth, unprecedented growth in last 5 years, and expected to be around 690 million by the end of 2021. So the burning question now is, what beyond CBD? So let's discuss with our guests here. I've been joined by Elisa Ratliff from Jersey Hemp, as well as by Maura Cosgrove from NatureCan. So first of all, Alicia, can you just give us some introduction, and because you're working in the industry, tell us what your company is doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Parveen. I'd like to start with just thanking Cannabis for this opportunity to join the panel, as well as Parveen for moderating, and joined by Moira, obviously an esteemed colleague in the industry as well. Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia Ratliff. I am a degreed chemist, and my background has been in chemistry, traditional laboratory work, project management, and facility build out for the cannabis and hemp industry over the past 5 years. I do have about 14 years experience over those industries, developing scientific methods, introducing and qualifying equipment, and understanding extraction mechanisms in chemistry and how they support biological substances. So I'm really excited and pleased to talk through what's going to happen beyond CBD. So obviously I'm coming over from the States into Jersey Hemp as their new scientific officer to help develop the platform of where they've started with their regenerative soil practices on cultivating hemp, as well as going into extraction of CBD primarily, but also research and development of other cannabinoids that are now starting to make their way onto the scene. For us, it's very important to explore some of these minor cannabinoids, specifically around CBG, just to see what markets are there and available in the UK, in the EU, but also to look towards research about these cannabinoids and what are those therapeutic benefits that those cannabinoids can either help CBD and increase the benefits of CBD, but also have their own primary functions as well. So our position here at Jersey Hemp is not to just be a high quality producer and provider of CBD extract and hemp products, but also to be a leader in research and development of other cannabinoids from a scientific perspective.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you and welcome on board. It will be interesting discussion with your experience, so you understand the industry very well, and having worked in the industry, that will be a very interesting and helpful discussion. Thank you, Lisa. And over to Maura. Maura, if you can give us your introduction as well as tell us what NatureCan is thinking and doing in the CBD industry.
Thank you very much, Parveen. And it's such a pleasure to be here with both yourself and Elisa. And to talk about this really exciting sector, CBD and beyond. What a place to be at the moment in the space of health and well-being. I can't think of a better place to be personally, because seeing what is going on where CBD went from obscurity to a global health phenomenon has really been quite incredible to watch. And it, as you said, I think at the beginning, it's unprecedented in this field. So yeah, my name's Moira Cosgrove. I'm a nutritionist by profession. And I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for quite a few years. And then I moved into nutrition around about 2000. And I'm qualified up to master's degree level, and I'm currently studying for a professional doctorate in CBD in collaboration with NatureCan and Liverpool John Moores University. So to get back to your original question, what are NatureCan doing at the moment? Well, this endocannabinoid system is such a thing of beauty. And I recently heard it described as a master regulator of other systems in the body. And isn't that a beautiful description of this system? And it's really, we have so much to learn. We are learning about how this system works, how it supports other systems in the body, why it's a major player in the biology of wellness. But we still have such a lot to learn. So yes, CBD went crazy, and this global health phenomenon, the science is catching up now with the enthusiasm and the fire that's behind this product and driving it forward. The science is catching up largely because of such an interest in it from a medicinal perspective. And of course, some of the benefits are very, very pertinent to the non-prescription side of CBD that can be bought by consumers for various health conditions, but also the regulatory side. And that's driving the research forward as well, because clearly the most important thing is consumer safety. So therefore, you have to have the evidence that your product is safe, it is produced in the right conditions, it is not contaminated with any substances that it shouldn't be, that are controlled substances like THC, for example. And this has forced the science forward. So that's really good news. But of course, in the process of this, newly discovered cannabinoids have come forward, and CBG is one of them. So for about 2 years now, NatureCan, one of our founders and director of product innovation, Paul Finnegan, who is probably the most knowledgeable person I have met in this space, who is not a scientist by background. His knowledge and experience of this industry is phenomenal. And he's been there and looked in America and talk to people who are at the forefront of this and at the cutting edge of technology in terms of extraction. And he got very, very interested in CBG. So we brought forward a launch of CBG in the NatureCan range. This is in addition to the broad spectrum CBD distillate range that is already offered and is backed by an application for novel food with the UK Food Standards Agency. But CBG is also on the product website for sale. So NatureCan, we are strong believers in the entourage effect. So if you can combine different cannabinoids, the non-intoxicating, but different cannabinoids, this can only enable that potential of this entourage effect that these molecules are offering potentially. So yeah, very, very excited about CBG. We think it's the next big thing, and we're really preparing for our novel food application because the regulation, it must come, and rightly so. So we're on our way to preparation for that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Maura. And rightly so, that safety has to be at the heart of it, regulations at the heart of it, whether it's innovation in the CBD itself, various formulations. When we're looking beyond CBD, whether it's what's in the market now and what can be done to the molecule just now or the other minor cannabinoids. Let's take into that. You mentioned CBG, and I'm glad that NatureCan are already working on the CBG, but from the safety perspective, what's your view, what they are doing to ensure the consumer who are taking the CBG are safe?
I'm sorry, Maura. If I may, I'll jump in on that one, Parveen. So just kind of piggybacking off of what Moira was saying about CBG being the next step in yourself, I do think safety is a high priority, obviously, for any provider. As Moira has mentioned, Jersey Hemp, we also have a CBG line of oils that we provide, and we have to go through rigorous testing to ensure that, there are no contaminants, that we are actually putting in the correct product strength for what you're looking for. So those things are high priority. I do think, though, talking about CBG and what's beyond CBD, it does beg the question of what are the challenges and obstacles from industry that we're, facing in order to even see this become a cannabinoid in the market. Right now, the market is dominated over here on this side of the pond, specifically with CBD on a consumer side and medically. You do have some cultivators that are now coming online with high THC products and just different things, but again, different track, completely different. When it comes to the consumer market, one of the challenges that Jersey Hemp does see is, number one, genetics to even be able to start to cultivate cultivars that are we a period where we're in a gray area post-Brexit, to where we're covered under EU laws for certain regulations, but we now have this opportunity to really kind of craft what is the UK framework going to look like? How are we going to deviate from the EU and some of those norms that are now, just a bit out of date? How are we going to put that into a robust market that there can be profitability and safety for a consumer product that is very effective? CBG specifically, I really love talking about this. And one of the reasons that it's been on the purview of Jersey Hemp is the fact that research out of Israel has been coming out about the effectiveness and the efficacy, and specifically the binding affinity of CBG being just a bit higher than the binding affinity of CBD. And that's something that is huge, because if you're suffering with anything, if you're just looking to add this supplement to your diet to increase your quality of life, having something that's going to bind a little bit more efficiently is going to work differently with your systems. And CBG specifically, because it is the analog for most of the cannabinoid isomers that come from it, it's going to have not just that high binding affinity, but it's going to work directly with those receptors versus the other cannabinoids typically work indirectly. So that's some of the things that I think we're now starting to look at as an industry is how are we going to overcome some of these challenges? Where are we going to find the genetics? How are we going to go through all these stability studies and efficacy studies? Are there any clinical trials to show us data on consumer consumption? Just different things like that. We have been active in trying to overcome. And I'm sure, Moira, you see the same challenges on your side as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of parallels there, Alicia, from what you've said. CBG is exciting because it's quite unique, as you already said. But the acting on alpha-2 adrenoceptors is something of particular interest because without getting too technical and everyone falls asleep, the result of that is a drop in noradrenaline. Well, some of the benefits of that, sleep is improved, pain is reduced, blood pressure can be reduced, stress is reduced. So all of these potential benefits are there with CBG, which make it quite unique amongst the cannabinoids. Now, the other thing, of course, is inflammation. And as we know, that is implicated in so many chronic diseases. So if you think about the effect of reducing that inflammatory pathway, of actually dampening it down, that is really potentially powerful. So going back to the plant, what you talked about with the genetics, absolutely right. We need the geneticists to work on higher yielding plants that will give us the CBG to enable to bring the costs down and get it more widely used amongst consumers for the health benefits. But it's not going to be easy. There definitely are challenges. Regulatory, of course, is going to be a big challenge because at the moment, the volume that we're selling, and I'm sure you're the same, is nothing like we're selling of CBD.
Absolutely.
So therefore, you don't have the batches to put in stability, etc. So all these requirements for regulatory. So that's going to take time. And also the science, the research is going to take time to catch up with the enthusiasm for it. But what an exciting future there is for these non-intoxicating cannabinoids that are coming through. Really, really good place to be.
Completely agreed.
That's really interesting, Maura. I think you both have touched on a couple of very interesting points. One, as you mentioned, Maura, that CBG is mother of all the other cannabinoids. And hence, obviously, research is not complete, but we are seeing a greater benefit on all aspects of homeostasis in the body. So that is really a great aspects of CBG. But on the other side of the coin, as you mentioned already, and Elisa as well, that we do need scientific evidence-based data. At the moment, research is not complete. Likewise, we started on the road of compliance for CBD, but for CBG, that has to go a long way at the moment. We need to generate the data. We need to generate the, as you mentioned, that we need to have the innovation on all aspects of the CBG products. What I mean by that is that we need innovation, as Elisa mentioned, in the genetics, so you can have enriched products, and then innovation in the actual formulation, and then innovation in the regulatory as well. So because the data is not there, we need that information. From that aspect, Elisa, just coming back on to you regarding the genetics, which are legally available, what sort of research is going on that area, especially with your experience from US as well? It will be interesting to hear that.
Sure, absolutely. So CBG is the hot cannabinoid that's coming on the scene behind CBD over in the States. The States is obviously a totally different market from what the UK is trying to set up. And I do think that the UK's approach is a bit more stringent, but I like it because you have what's happened in the States was essentially like the floodgates opened and everyone was able to do everything. And now they're trying to infuse regulation and standardization versus the UK is doing it differently. They're coming out with harder and more stringent laws and regulation and bringing that back based on data and studies that are coming out to prove otherwise. So I think, honestly, it does start with the genetics. CBG is a minor cannabinoid that naturally occurs in less than 1% to 2% of the cannabinoid profile in most cultivars. And one of the challenges that we've talked about with the innovation of these products is that regulatory piece. As an industry professional over in the UK, you can only grow cultivars that are approved by the EU. And most of those cultivars are typically set up for seed and fiber production, which is totally different from what we're even, targeting. We're targeting oil content, fat content. We want those things in our plants. And right now, we just don't have those options. And that's a huge challenge to try and develop and innovate a product when you don't even have a starting material that you can legally use to grow. So it's quite interesting trying to jump over that obstacle in order to really develop this platform a bit further. Over in the States, because of this, 10 times the price that you would pay for a CBD tincture is what you would pay for CBG to produce it, because it is just not naturally occurring in the levels that we would need to be able to produce it in a good manner to where the consumer doesn't have to pay a premium. So one of the ways around that I've started to see has been quite a bit of research on the synthetic side of using yeast to ferment and increase the yields of some of these cannabinoids. So that's something that is starting to take off back home in the States. There's specifically a company, I'm not sure the name at this moment, but they're specifically going through that route of doing yeast fermentation to increase the yield of CBG so that they'll have enough input to have a product that's competitive within the CBD market. So that's definitely something that we might see happening here. I won't say that I am a huge advocate of synthetic cannabinoids. I do like natural products as much as possible. And as Moira's alluded to, the entourage effect is something that we also are huge supporters of. And I definitely think that CBG isolated has its benefits, but along with CBD, with THCV, with CBN, with all the terpenoids that come into a full spectrum extract, I think they're very important when you're talking about innovation, when you're talking about moving to that next stage.
Maura and Elisa, I'm getting the feeling that your companies and industry body is feeling that regulatory status in UK and the laws in UK are inhibiting the innovation. Is that what you are trying to get through? And why? Why do you think it's inhibiting the innovation?
Well, having been through the novel food application process and seen the complexity, it is pretty much like doing a pharmaceutical application. It's not like doing a food supplement, a nutritional supplement application at all. So that process itself is extremely costly, and it takes a lot of resources to get that application dossier in place. And the more diverse your product range, the more complex the application will be. So there's that, but that's got to be done. It's a given, and there are very good reasons why. And I am a firm supporter of the regulation in the UK and elsewhere. But, our government can do a lot more. So there's a lot of work to be done in really communicating the benefit of this sector to the government, and to show them the value in allowing this sector to develop. And that can only be done when people in government understand what the sector is about, not still think we're talking about smoking cannabis. We've moved well on from that. This is completely different, but there is not a great understanding. That's my information from people that I know who are involved in those circles. They don't really understand the sector and what it's trying to achieve. So there's a lot of communication and education, but they need to get behind the sector and help it grow, not inhibit it by unnecessary regulation. I don't mean product safety. We need that, but other sorts of regulation. And really, you have to wonder if the Home Office are best equipped to handle this, really. It's time for a CBD, a particular part of the government looking after this sector, in my view, and really pushing forward, both on the medicinal side, the prescription side, and also for the consumer. So
I understand, Maura, due to interest of time, I'm also gonna introduce some questions. We have questions already coming in. So let's take some questions.
Sure.
First question is from Sarah Wilson. How do you envisage CBD and cannabinoid industry will look like in 5 years' time?
Oh, I'd love to tackle that one really quickly. So a great question. You know, in 5 years' time, it's very hard to say definitively what it will look like, because obviously that's going to be shaped by the regulatory framework and the direction that the UK takes. But I would love to say that you can look at North America as a precursor, if you will, at the granular level of how companies are having to operate, what the licensing requirements are, different things like that. But if you just look at the market as a whole, if you take the picture snapshot 10 to 15 years ago, then you'll see pilot programs in the States starting to, research and develop cultivation, locations, what's the best way to grow, what's the best way to extract. And then now you have what started as a niche product and a niche market is now commoditized. And now you have these commodities being sold in health food shops and dispensaries alike. So I do think within 5 years, the UK is going to mirror what happened with the CBD market in North America as far as its growth. But I think that we'll see a lot more strong brands. We'll see a lot more product safety. We'll see a lot more transparency with scientific data as far as your COAs of everything that's produced. I think that's where North America missed the mark. They missed the mark in being able to properly regulate all of the producers. And I do think in 5 years, we'll see a healthier market because of that, where there will be players like Nature Can, Jersey Hemp that can equally share in the market and be profitable easily while this market jumps into where it's going to be in 5 years. And I definitely think the value on the market is actually going to grow quite significantly. I think we're valuated in the next couple of years to be, a few $100 million. By 5 years from now, we can definitely see $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'd just like to add something there. And I do agree. And I'm really glad that you could give us the American perspective, because certainly we believe that the UK is doing it the right way round with the regulatory process. I think that the consumer will be able to have a lot more confidence in the future, because if a product is on the market and is licensed, that will give them the confidence to know they're buying a safe product. That's the first thing. At the moment, you can go online and buy products. You don't know what's in it. Potentially, it could be contaminated. There's a real risk there. That will reduce by regulation. That's a good thing. Hopefully the price will come down as we get better and better at extracting the product with the innovation that comes from that side of it. So it will be more affordable. But I do believe there's a real health revolution going on here. And in 5 years, it's going to look very, very positive. At Nature Can, we believe there's a very bright future in CBD and beyond with the other cannabinoids.
Thank you. Thank you both. Let's take a question from Tony Harrison. Is it more expensive to produce CBG it will be interesting to see both sides. Maura, your view as well as Elisa. Maura, you want to go first?
Yeah, just purely because it's not abundant in the plant. It's a short-lived precursor. The CBG we're talking now, of CBD and THC and CBC. So it's low in concentration in the plant. So just by that fact alone, it's harder to extract. You know, there's less of it. So this is what we were talking about with the genetics. And you really need, from your oil supplying partner, you need a geneticist in there who knows what they're doing to actually push all this forward and drive it. So yeah, it is more expensive.
And I can mirror that as well, Moira. Again, it does come down to what's naturally available in the plant. And when we talk about what's on that approved EU list, again, we're talking about cultivars that are better fit for purpose of seed and fiber production. So your overall cannabinoid content levels are typically 2 to 3% already. And from that 2 to 3%, 1% of that, or excuse me, 0.1% of that could be CBG. So what would have taken me 3 extractions to pull out all of the CBD available is now going to take me 10 extractions to pull out all of the CBG, and, you know, to be able to bulk up enough to go into a formulation. So just from an operational standpoint, it absolutely is more expensive just from the bioavailability in the plant. Now, once we are able to innovate and we do have less framework and stringency around import-export licensing, around research laboratories and what they can hold and what they can't, then we can start to develop more genetics that we can have, you know, more cultivars that are higher in CBG content. And we are seeing this happen over in North America. There's quite a bit of research into the breeding of these plants.
That's interesting. Overall, the comment is that if we are having plant-derived cannabinoids, then obviously yield is going to be an issue. Even though you improve the genetics, still there will be an issue. And that's why the teams are looking into the alternatives. What could be the alternatives as a synthetic, as a increased yield by using the fermentation and so forth. All these helpful manufacturing methods will increase the yield. But again, there is 2 different aspects. I think we wouldn't go into that discussion now, whether synthetic versus plant-derived and pros and cons of it. But I've got another interesting question comes through. Does the CBC have a potential? Because we only in our discussion talked about CBG, but there are other minor cannabinoids, controlled cannabinoids as well as uncontrolled cannabinoids, like the THCV, CBN, all those controlled cannabinoids, and the CBC and the CBG. What's your view on that? Lisa first.
Sure. So obviously our position, again, is to be scientifically driven with our business. So we do explore all research and development opportunities. To speak to that, I would say, one, there's definitely quite a bit of research going on around all of the different minor cannabinoids that we are starting to quantify. 10 years ago, we were only quantifying maybe 6 to 8 cannabinoids. Now your typical HPLC analysis is going to quantify 16, and you can extend that method up to about 30 if you're doing a research method. So as we continue to learn about these cannabinoids, what are the benefits, what are side effects, what are potential risks, then we'll start to be able to have a lot more solid data and interpretation of where that's going to go in a specific commercial market. Again, too, with the innovation, you can look to certain pieces of equipment that you can outfit in your laboratory to be able to purify and isolate some of these cannabinoids to get a better understanding of yield, how it's available, how can I isolate it and purify it, how can I formulate it into a product, and what are my costs associated with that. So that's really my perspective on CBC and all of the other minors.
And Maura, I will give you the opportunity to give some answers on the other minor cannabinoids, as well as also, because of interest of time, I'm adding in the delta 8 THC. We know when we talk about THC, we only talk about delta 9 THC because that's the main one, but delta 8 THC is also coming along, which is a little bit less psychoactive than the delta 9 THC. I would like to have your views on that as well, please.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think from NatureCan's point of view, the reason that we have a broad spectrum CBD distillates with non-detectable THC is because we are very, very strongly behind the entourage effect. If we could have full spectrum, whoopee-doo, but we can't. So we have broad spectrum. So yes, we've talked a lot about CBG. CBC is definitely also on our radar because, of course, it's non-intoxicating. So that's the first thing. We have to look at the non-intoxicating, whilst the intoxicating cannabinoids are still prohibited. And we're probably going to be working with that for, I don't know, the foreseeable future. I'd like to hope that there are more conversations to be had around microdosing as we go forward. But let's see where we go with that. So yeah, Delta 8, I know there's a lot going on. I can't say it's something we have looked specifically into at the moment, but certainly CBC is definitely on our radar because it can add to the entourage effect that NatureCan is so firmly behind in its product offering.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting. Thank you very much, Moira and Alicia. Enjoyed very helpful discussion, enjoyed the discussion, and thank you very much our audience. All the best for listening, and thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.